Imagine a silence so heavy you can hear the blood rushing through your own veins. Not the peaceful silence of a library, but the weighted, expectant hush of an old apartment building in the dead of night. 11 years ago, that was my reality. I lived in a complex that felt ordinary enough, save for the one detail that kept my nerves on a constant, low-level wire: the wolf spiders. They weren't your typical house spiders. These were Lycosidae, nocturnal pursuit hunters. They didn't sit in webs and wait for life to come to them. They stalked. They were fast, capable of moving at 2 feet per second, their large, hairy bodies reaching leg spans of nearly 4 inches. At night, if you caught them in the beam of a flashlight, you wouldn't just see a bug. You'd see 8 glowing eyes reflecting the light back at you. So a worrisome arrangement of 2 large front eyes and 6 smaller ones beneath them. Living with them meant living in a state of chronic hypervigilance. My amygdala was already primed. My brain was already scanning the shadows for movement. I didn't know it then, but this baseline of environmental stress was merely the foundation for something much darker. The air in the complex changed during one specific weekend. The man who lived across the hall from me, an older fellow who usually kept to himself, was hosting a party. It started as a typical Friday night. The muffled thrum of music, the clinking of glass, the indistinct roar of laughter. His brother was there, drinking heavily. In the forensic world, we talk about the threshold of toxicity for a man of his size. It doesn't take much to tip the scales from drunk to poisoned. As he consumed more ethanol, C2H5OH, his central nervous system began to surrender. The alcohol was acting as a profound depressant, slowly shutting down the vital centers of his brain that regulated his heart rate and body temperature. Eventually, his blood alcohol content likely soared toward 0.40%, a level where the brain's respiratory centers simply paralyzed. He passed out on the floor. His brother and the other guests looked at him and made a fatal assumption. They thought he was just sleeping it off. They didn't realize that the alcohol had suppressed his gag reflex. They didn't see the biological crisis unfolding as his lungs began to fill with fluid, a condition called pulmonary edema. While the party continued and eventually died down, he died in silence, asphyxiating on his own biology. But the tragedy didn't end with his final breath, because everyone thought he was asleep. His body remained in that room for over 12 hours. It sat there as the room cooled, the initial stages of post-mortem decay beginning to saturate the porous walls of our old building. When someone dies of acute alcohol poisoning, the body can release a distinctive olfactory profile, a heavy, disturbing mix of blood, digestive fluids, and chemical breakdown. Even if I couldn't consciously smell it through the hallway, my lizard brain knew something had shifted. The weeks that followed were filled with odd sounds. In an old building, you expect creaks and pops as materials expand and contract. But these were different. They were scrapes that didn't match the skittering of a spider. They were thumps that felt intentional. I was already on edge, but I was trying to stay grounded for the sake of my daughter. Then came the night. I was lying in bed with my toddler, waiting for her to drift off. The only light in the room was a soft golden sliver spilling in from the bathroom doorway. It was a tether to the physical world, a reminder that the apartment was safe. And then the light vanished. Something had stepped into the doorway. I whipped my head up and there it was, a black mass. It wasn't a shadow cast by furniture. It was blacker than black, an inky, solid humanoid figure that seemed to possess its own density. It stood roughly 6 feet tall, a featureless void that completely blocked the light from the bathroom. It wasn't jittery, it was static, watching me and my child with an intensity that felt like a physical weight. In that instant, my body erupted in a sensation I'll never forget. It was a fierce electric tingling that swept from my scalp to my toes, 1,000 pins and needles under my skin. In the medical field, we call this paresthesia. It's a byproduct of the fight or flight response, where the surge of adrenaline causes you to hyperventilate, shifting the chemistry of your blood and causing your nerves to fire in a frantic, disorganized chorus. My body was telling me I was in mortal danger. I squeezed my eyes shut for a heartbeat, paralyzed by the choice. Was this a man who had broken in, or was it something that locks couldn't stop? The parental instinct is a powerful, primal thing. It can shatter a freeze response in a second. I popped my eyes open, and the doorway was empty. The light was back, but the threat wasn't gone in my mind. I didn't reach for a phone. I reached for my shotgun. I grabbed 2 shells. The cold weight of the steel ground me. I went into the hallway, moving with a tactical focus I didn't know I possessed. I began to slice the pie, moving in a slow quarter circle around every corner to ensure I saw what was there before it saw me. I was checking the fatal funnels, the narrow passages like doorways where an intruder would expect to ambush a defender. I checked the front door. Both locks were turned. The chain was still in place. I checked every window, locked. I went through the entire apartment, checking under beds and inside the dark voids of closets. Every lock, every latch was exactly as it should be. There was no physical way for anyone to have entered or exited that apartment. I lived there for a couple of more months, hearing those phantom noises, but I never saw the black mass again. Some researchers say shadow people feed on fear, and perhaps my transition from the victim to the armed defender removed the energy it needed to manifest. But the damage was done. According to the shattered assumptions theory, a home invasion, whether physical or paranormal, violates the primary territory of the self. My sense of safety was gone. I moved the moment my lease was up. I left the spiders. I left the memory of the man across the hall. And I left that dark doorway behind. Because once you've seen a shadow that stands on its own, you never quite look at the dark the same way again.